everybody, it's Jasmine. So today I'm going to teach you guys how to bronze. Now this is a pretty easy how-to video and I just hope that this will help inspire you guys to look like a sun-kissed goddess this upcoming summer season. So let's get started. I'm going to start off this video by showing you a couple different bronzers that I feel like work for my skin tone. I'll also show you guys some that are a little bit lighter than my skin tone and won't probably work, and some that are a little too dark and why they're too dark. Now me, I am a medium skin tone. I range from light medium to medium. Right now it just got out of winter, so I'm pretty much my lightest. I am in the shade 290 in Fenty. If you're curious, I do have a foundation routine talking about all of the foundations that are my color. So if you want that as a reference, I highly recommend that video. So I am a medium skin tone. I do have a warm yellow, a little bit of olive undertone in there. I kind of just disregard the whole olive undertone portion, but majority of the foundations that are very yellow usually match me. So it's pretty easy to find something of a bronzer that will match me. Sometimes orangey bronzers work for me. That's surprising for a lot of people, but it's just what complements my skin tone. So if you are my foundation twinnie, you'll find that this guide will be extremely helpful. And if you are anywhere around my skin tone, or if you're just trying to learn more about bronzers, I'll give you a few tips and tricks as well. So now I'm going to talk about some bronzer palettes, because I feel like when you're a beginner, bronzer palettes are really easy because they give you a range of colors so that you can play around with what shade looks the best on your skin. Now, the difference between a bronzer palette and a contour palette is that bronzer is meant to warm up your face. Contour will be a little bit more cool tone, and you'll see that in this video. Contours will be more cool tone and they're meant to add shadow, add a little bit of sculpt, usually to slim down the face. I like to apply my bronzer in my contour areas, so that's going to be right under my cheekbones, on my hairline, and on my jaw. So those are the areas where people just want to slim down, and you know, honestly, I don't really have much I want to slim down on my face, so that's why I put the bronzer in my contour areas. So when differentiating the two, a lot of people typically apply bronzer all over the face, you know, as a very sun-kissed and very healthy glow. So I'm going to show you one of my favorite drugstore palettes that I personally like to bronze with. This is the e.l.f. bronzing palette. They have a couple options. They don't go extremely dark, so if you are medium or tan or light, this will probably fit you the best. There are not a lot of palettes that I know personally that go really dark, but that's because I haven't really been on the hunt for them. So that's just me being honest, but the e.l.f. Bronze Beauty bronzer palette is one of my drugstore favorites. You guys know this ever since I started my channel. This has actually been one of the products that has remained consistent to me, and I actually went through a whole palette, all 4 shades, all done, and this is my second palette and I'm already making extreme dents. I think this one is the closest that is to running out. So here you have a little bit of options. They do kind of look the same, and what you're given is 1 matte shade here, 1 matte shade here, and 2 shimmers. So you'll see a lot of bronzers have shimmers because, like I said earlier, it's kind of giving you a sun-kissed glow. If you don't want to emphasize your texture, if you do have textured skin, you might want to stick to just all matte bronzers. They're still going to have the warmth in there. It's just you're not going to feel that much sun-kissed. Like when you go out into the sun, you're not going to look like I just spent the entire day soaking up the sun, getting that vitamin D. You know, you're just gonna look like I woke up like this. My face is naturally kind of warm but also a little sculpted if you do go in with the matte bronzer. Another one that I really enjoy, and I'm actually not sure if this is discontinued because I got it on sale at Ulta. This one, I got it for $3, but I'm pretty sure these ones range at $7. Now this one is the Makeup Revolution bronzer palette in All About Bronze. Now this one's kind of similar to the e.l.f. one. You do get a little bit more shades. The pans are a little bit smaller, but you can kind of see that, you know, you're kind of given the same thing where you have some shades that are lighter, some shades that are darker, and then you have these 2 marbled shades up here, and those ones do contain a little bit more of that shimmer, that little sun-kissed bronze effect, and it's just nice to have overall to you know, work with. So something like this and palettes in general, I know NYX might have one. I think that might be called a contour palette. I haven't bought it because it's expensive. That one's expensive and I really didn't want to buy it. So there's other options at the drugstore. So I am going to compare a contour palette with a bronzer palette since we're still in that palette category. So this is the Sigma Sculpt palette and I only use this I think like twice on my channel. So you'll see here, it's kind of the same situation. So this is a contour and highlight palette. So these ones are meant to be highlight, like a cheekbone highlight shade. So you do have those options and then you do have these ones. Now, comparing this palette to the other bronzer palettes, these ones run a little bit more cool. So I'm not sure how your computer or phone is picking it up, but if you look closely at it, you can see that this is kind of like a taupey mauve. You see this one, it's more of like a neutral brown, and then this one gets into like that more plummy, cool tone grayish color. So that's usually the tone of contour palettes. And then if you compare it to, I'm just going to take the Makeup Revolution one. If you compare it to Makeup Revolution, you could see that these have a lot more warm, I want to say peachy, but also orangey, golden tones. So a little bit different than a contour palette. Now we're still working with shades that work for me, and personally Benefit Hoola works really, really well. I have the mini here. If you're unfamiliar with what it looks like, it just looks like this. It's really close to my skin tone and it's really close to the lighter shades in the bronzer palettes that I showed you previously. Now this one is really buildable, so the more layers I add, I feel like I will start getting a little bit deeper and darker. Now they did actually launch, because I was out of Macy's yesterday, they did actually launch 2 darker shades than this. They have a Hoola Light and then 2 darker Hoolas, but even the darkest Hoola is not dark enough in my opinion. So they do need to work on that, but you know, listen, they're getting there. You know, I'm glad that they finally have darker shades available, so that's nice. And then the last bronzers that you can get individually are the Balm Bahama Mama bronzer, and then the Take Home the Bronze bronzer as well. These are 2 different ones. Now Bahama Mama is very, very popular. It's pigmented. It's pretty much like the basic bronzer. I just feel like the Balm makes great basic necessity items and they make it for a pretty good price. So this is what this looks like, and this really reminds me of kind of the shades in the e.l.f. palette. If this was a shade in the e.l.f. palette, like it would just go together, and it's more like when I put it on, it's a lot more warm and it doesn't give me any shadows. Now if you look at Take Home the Bronze, you can see that this is a lot more orange. This is a lot more orangey tone, and it's really dark compared to my skin. Like if I were to hold it up against me, you could see that there is a pretty big difference. Now I don't use this all the time. There are some times where I do really want to look extremely warm, extremely sun-kissed, and sometimes in the summer I do get kind of dark, and that's when I would pop this bad boy out and use it. Now this kind of brings me into the subject of, okay Jasmine, well you just gave me your favorite bronzers, but how the heck am I going to pick mine? Okay, so I usually go for around maybe 4 shades darker, or sometimes 5 shades darker than my actual skin tone. So I told you guys I'm a light medium to medium skin tone. Now when I bronze, I want something that'll look a little bit more tan. If you're tan, you might want to go into something that's more deep. If you're deep, you might want to go into something that's more rich, and so on and so forth, you know what I mean? So when I am choosing a bronzer, sometimes I could just look at it, because I've used bronzers so much, I could sometimes just look at it and be like, okay, like this will work for me. But that also doesn't consider in the pigmentation of a product either. So I usually go for like this shade right here. That shade is perfect on me because if I hold it up, you can see it's like not too dark, but then I can also deepen it up just a little bit with this one. And as you can, like once I apply this one, because I think I am going to use this on one side of my face, once I apply it, you can kind of see how everything just like applies together and just meshes into my skin really nicely. But if you are having troubles with bronzers, this is kind of a new thing that I don't know if I should recommend because it's new to me, but cream contour. I know cream contour palettes are not relevant anymore. You know, nobody really uses cream contours all that much, but people do buy on accident sometimes darker foundations and darker concealers. So when you are, you know, foundation or concealer shopping and you're just like, man, this concealer or foundation is just a little too dark, you can kind of take inspiration off that color and go a step higher than that and use that to bronze your face. And that's pretty much what I like to do. So for example, a concealer that I like to cream contour with, I say cream contour a lot, but I should just say like cream bronzing, but like CC, it just meshes well together. So cream contour is just what I say. So this is something that I personally like to bronze with. Now, you can't really see out the tube, but I will do a swatch. Now, this is what I mean when something is like around that 4 shades darker range. You can barely see it because it's reflecting the light. But this is kind of what I mean, where like, you know, 4 shades darker at least. Like this will not be a foundation shade for me, but on the cheeks, it'll be really good. And also, if you just feel like, well, I kind of want to amp it up a little bit, if this isn't completely your shade, then I would probably go in with the powder and then just play around like that. Like that's the great thing about bronzers. Like there's so many bronzer palettes on the market right now that you could just get a palette and then play around with it. Now let's talk a little bit about brushes. Now brushes are to each their own, honestly. What are you comfortable with? What is your face shape? Is your face petite, or is it a little bit more round, or does it have more surface area? You know, like just depending on your face kind of depends on your preference of the brush as well. So when I was actually getting into makeup, you guys know this was like the standard bronzer brush. Everybody had like a fluffy angled brush like this that they could just apply the bronzer and blush with, and it was actually really good. Now you see that I do have product on here. It's not my preferred brush, honestly. I prefer things of like a flatter, shorter, rounder type of situation. So my all-time favorite one is by ShopMissA. This is from their Foam Mink collection. This is their F24. You've seen this in a lot of videos, and most recently I've actually been into this one by Juno&Co. It's kind of the same thing, but maybe just a little bit smaller in size. So it's also really, really great. This is the Juno&Co ES16. Amazing brush. They're both great, both affordable, and I really do like this because it really does fit in the cheek area, and I feel like I have a very petite face, so this kind of brush works really well for me. So if you have more surface area to your face, you're probably going to need something a little bit more substantial and a little bit bigger. Now I use this more as like a blending brush whenever I feel like, oh, my bronzer is a little too harsh today. I'll just use this to blend everything out. This is the Spicy Choco number 7, and it's kind of similar to the first brush that I mentioned, you know, the whole angled brush situation. This one, again, it creates, if you were to use this alone as a bronzer brush, it creates that all over bronze that everybody pretty much wants with a bronzer, like that whole Sunkissed vibe that I was talking about. This will just give it to you really fast and really simple. So the bigger the brush, the faster the application. So on one side of my face, I am going to take the e.l.f. palette just so I can show you guys an easy way in case you are trying to figure out how to bronze. So I am going to take the lightest matte shade first. I'm going to take this on both sides of the brush, tap it off a little bit, and I always start on my forehead. I don't know if you guys know this in my videos, but I always start on my forehead because it's, I feel like, the easiest whenever you're trying to blend out the color. And I feel like if you start at the cheekbone, sometimes it gets harder to blend down there. I don't know. So for the sake of easeability to blend, I just start on my forehead and I just take it down on my jaw as well. So it's my forehead, my cheek, and then my my jaw. So I am working in circular motions whenever I do this. It's just easier, it blends, it applies all in one step. For the shimmer, I actually mix both shades. Now these ones are not intense shimmers at all. These are just very subtle, like the lightest amount of shimmer possible, and this will also reflect a lot of that sunlight or artificial light, and it just looks good in pictures. So just apply that right on top, and as you could see, I'm already starting to look a little bit more tanned on one side, this side, and this side kind of just looks like, oh well, like I could go out, you know, but this will just add a little bit more definition. And then finally, we do take that darkest shade, and this is where I like to apply my like contour technique. So this is gonna go more towards the hairline because you wanna create a little bit of depth. And then when you get towards the cheekbone, you wanna just cut it pretty low, like lower than the other shades. And then for the jaw, I mean, I don't really have a technique for the jaw, I just apply it. And that's pretty much how I bronze on this side. Now let's go into a singular bronzer just so I could show you guys the difference in application. And sometimes a single bronzer is easier because you have less to work with. You know, this was a technique where I built up, and it's a more seamless and a more natural effect. So the lighter shade acted like a transition shade to the other colors that I was gonna apply, and it was just overall just very seamless, very soft, very smooth. Now I am going to take the Hoola bronzer because you guys see me use this a lot, so why not use it? I am gonna take the same brush just for the ease of my life, and I'm just gonna take it both sides again, tap it. And you also want to start on the forehead again. And then sometimes when I do one bronzer, like a singular bronzer, I'll go back within each section. And that's just out of habit, honestly. So now I'll just go in to my cheekbone. And when I do this one side, I start low and then I swipe up. So start low, swipe up, and then remember to get that temple area because sometimes a lot of people forget it. It's a part that gets neglected, okay? It's just next to your eyebrow. Sometimes people don't want to mess up their eyebrow, so they just forget it. But you want to just apply, move it up a little bit towards that temple, and then move it back up to the forehead. And then with whatever is left, I then put it under the jaw. So a little bit of a different technique, honestly, but you still do get the same effect. Now, I might just be one of the very few that likes to bronze my nose. I take my brush and I literally just, with whatever is left, I just put it on the tip of my nose. I don't contour it. I just want it to look like my nose bridge is there. You know, just not looking like Voldemort is an acquired taste for me. Now you could leave it like this. It looks really nice, very simple, just very fresh. I like to go in with blush and highlight, so that's just what I'm gonna do. I'm really enjoying the Nars Orgasm blush. I think it's so pretty. I don't know why I was sleeping on this, but now I'm into it. I think it's really, really nice. I'm taking this on another spicy Choco brush. This one's the number 6, and this one's a paddle brush. So I just take one side on one cheek, and then the other side on the other cheek, and then I just go over my nose just a little bit because I feel like when you're naturally in the sun, you know, your nose kind of gets tan because it's the only thing really protruding out. So that's why I like to make sure it's all even. And this blush also has a little bit of shimmer, so it helps with that bronzy effect. And because I haven't used it in a while, I'm going to take my Fenty Beauty Killawatt highlight. I have the shade Mean Money and Hustla Baby. So when I highlight with this, I usually take the lightest shade. And this is actually the one that has the most subtle shimmer. And I'm just going to lightly apply this in my cheekbone area. Now when I highlight, I like to smile. And right where my cheeks are, that's where I apply my highlight. It looks great in all angles and most definitely in pictures. Looks real good in pictures. And then you want to do your chin because that's also going to get a little bit, you want to emphasize like fake sweat on your skin. So the chin, the nose, and I already have an inner corner highlight. And then some people like doing like over their brow. I really don't care for that. And then I'll take the more shimmery and bright side. That will give me like more of the highlighted effect, and I'll place this strategically in areas where I really do want my highlight to stand out. So right at the tip of everything is where I do that. Alright you guys, and that concludes my how to bronze look. Now I hope this was really helpful for you guys. I hope I gave you some tips. I hope I gave you guys some recommendations for things to try in the future. And as always, I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye! Peace out, Girl Scouts.